U.S. President Donald Trump is preparing to mount fresh pressure on America's allies in the Group of Seven nations, urging them to impose sharply higher tariffs on India and China for their continued purchases of Russian oil, a move Washington hopes will weaken Moscow's war machine and drive Vladimir Putin toward the negotiating table. According to a report in the Financial Times, the Trump administration is floating tariff levels of between 50 and 100% on oil-linked imports from India and China, with the proposal set to be discussed during a video call between G7 finance ministers on Friday. Canada, which currently holds the G7 presidency, confirmed the meeting, stating that ministers would consider further measures to increase pressure on Russia and limit their war machinery. The White House is framing the plan as part of Trump's so-called Peace and Prosperity Administration initiative, which relies on hard economic pressure to compel Russia into negotiations. A U.S. Treasury spokesperson told the newspaper that, quote, Chinese and Indian purchases of Russian oil are funding Putin's war machine and prolonging the senseless killing of the Ukrainian people. This latest push builds on a series of tariff escalations earlier this year. In April, Trump raised duties on Chinese imports, though some were later rolled back after market turbulence. And in August, Washington imposed 50% tariffs on Indian imports, made up of a 25% reciprocal duty and a 25% punitive levy directly tied to India's Russian oil purchases. Trump also personally urged the European Union last week to adopt similar tariffs of up to 100% on Indian and Chinese imports, claiming that only concerted allied pressure would force Putin to end the war in Ukraine. But in Brussels, hesitation remains. European officials warn that steep tariffs on Beijing and New Delhi could trigger retaliation and strain already fragile economies. Instead, the EU is considering accelerating its 2027 deadline for phasing out Russian energy imports while tightening sanctions in other areas. The broader geopolitical backdrop is Trump's long-promised pledge to end the Ukraine war on his first day in office, a promise that has so far gone unfulfilled. A much-anticipated summit in Alaska last month between Putin and Trump concluded without a breakthrough, even as Russian missile strikes on Ukrainian cities intensified. Although the Trump administration has threatened harsher measures against Russia itself, it has so far refrained from imposing the kind of sweeping sanctions that many analysts expected, instead targeting Moscow's partners in Asia as part of its strategy. For now, the question is whether the G7 will fall in line with Washington's demand. The outcome of this week's finance ministers' meeting could determine whether Trump succeeds in rallying the world's most powerful economies behind his plan, or whether Europe's caution stalls his latest bid to isolate Russia. As the war in Ukraine grinds on, and as Trump escalates trade threats against two of the world's fastest-growing economies, the stakes are higher than ever. Stay with us for continuing coverage of this developing story, and don't forget to subscribe to the Indian Express YouTube channel for more global news and analysis.